His work exemplifies not only a theoretical understanding of AI, but also a pragmatic, results-driven approach to applying AI in real-world business challenges. He has over 30 years of experience contributing to AI and automation software engineering. Keith founded AI Business Solutions, and under his leadership, the company has emerged as a guiding light for small e-commerce enterprises. Keith has several notable achievements, including the prestigious NASA Silver Snoopy Award, recognizing his work on the Virtual Research Center and his significant role in developing SAFE, Secure Access File Exchange software, which continues to be an essential tool used by numerous government agencies. From academia to entrepreneurship, Keith has stories that will definitely keep you on the edge of your seat. Today, we can learn from his experiences. Please join me in welcoming Keith Crowe.
Thank you. So appreciate the introduction. I will add to it one bit. I was a senior research scientist at UAH, the University of Alabama in Huntsville, for 25 years. I retired March 1st, 2020 to travel the world. 3 weeks later, the world shut down. So instead, I've started my own AI business here in town. We're located in the incubator on UH's campus. So it's AI Business Solutions, and what we do is we work with through consulting and custom software development. We help small and medium-sized businesses integrate AI into their workflows. I feel like that large corporations have had access to these AI tools for quite some time. Small businesses have not. And now that we have things like ChatGPT, Midjourney, DALL-E, all these different, really hundreds of AI tools, small businesses have access to them, but they don't really know how to use them. They don't know how they can be integrated into their workflows. If they do know how, they don't have the expertise in-house to do it. And so we're trying to help close that gap. And I'm a big believer in the democratization of AI. And so we're trying to get AI into the hands of the smaller businesses. So I asked ChatGPT how I should start this presentation, and it said I should start with a quote. But I couldn't find a single one I liked, so I'm gonna start with a bunch of quotes. So the first one from Bill Gates. In the workforce, AI will serve as a personal agent, drafting emails, monitoring schedules, taking notes. These abilities will cause massive workplace shifts, which will necessitate that governments help workers transition to other roles. Another one from Bill. The rise of AI will free people up to do things that software never will. Teaching, caring for patients, and supporting the elderly. Very optimistic utopian view from Bill there. So let's counter it with one from Elon. Elon says, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. And all those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, it's like, yeah, he's sure he can control the demon. Doesn't work out. It's also a good point too. My favorite is probably Stephen Hawking. Success in creating effective AI could be the biggest event in the history of civilization, or the worst. We just don't know. So we cannot know if we will be infinitely helped by AI or ignored by it and sidelined. So let's hope that we're infinitely helped and not sidelined. And this one is pretty important. Machine intelligence is the last invention that humanity will ever need to make. And that's one to just sink in for a second. So right now we are at AI, artificial intelligence. A lot of people like to call it augmented intelligence because it's really not intelligent, but it simulates intelligence. Most people think we'll hit AGI by the end of this year, artificial general intelligence. I believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll hit ASI, artificial superintelligence, an AI that's actually smarter than us. When we get to that level, that's when this quote comes into play. When you have an intelligence that's smarter than humanity, it will be the one making the inventions, not us. And then on that note, one last quote. As more and more artificial intelligence is entering into the world, more and more emotional intelligence must enter into leadership. So here's what people are saying about the impact of AI and jobs. The World Economic Forum estimates that 85 million jobs will be replaced by AI by 2025. Goldman Sachs says 300 million, but they also point out that GDP will go up by 7%. So let's take a minute to put AI in context here. So I've heard people say AI is a fad. I've heard people compare it to things like the printing press. I've heard them compare it to things like the iPhone. Here's where I put it. In my lifetime, and I'm not old enough to remember the printing press. I'm pretty old, but I'm not that old. But I do remember the PC. And when the PCs came out in the early 80s, it was revolutionary. You took what used to fill an entire room and require a team of software engineers to use, and you put it into a user-friendly interface and put it on millions of people's desktops. And it changed the world. And the question that people asked back in those days is the PC or computer's going to take my job? There were articles all over, Time magazine, things like that. Is the internet going to replace jobs? And of course, PC. And of course, PCs did replace a lot of jobs, but they created an incredible industry that's still going strong today. The second time I saw it was in the early 90s with the internet and then the web in the mid-90s. And I'll tell you, I was an internet evangelist. I would invite people over to my place to show them the internet on my green phosphorus monitor and my dial-up modem and tell them this is going to be really big someday. And most of them thought I was crazy, but a few got it. And when people did start to get it, what was the biggest thing you heard back in the late 90s, early 2000s? Is the internet going to take my job? And yes, ask anybody that worked at a newspaper if the internet would take jobs. It took a lot of jobs, but again, it created an entire new industry. In those early days, we didn't think that e-commerce, which didn't really exist as a word, was going to be possible because you couldn't encrypt anything on the internet. It turns out that's one of the biggest uses of the internet. So we knew it would be big, but we really didn't know how it would be big. And I think we're at that point with AI right now. And the most common question I've been asked over the past year is AI going to take my job? And yes, AI is going to take a lot of jobs. But at the same time, it's spawned an incredible new industry, and it's going to create more jobs, more job positions that we don't even have names for right now. A few years ago, nobody knew what a prompt engineer was. I'm not sure the phrase had been coined yet. So we're going to see new positions like that come, and we're going to see the jobs that we have now change pretty dramatically. So here's where we are right now. 99% of Fortune 500 companies are using AI right now. So what does that tell us? 5 Fortune 500 companies are probably lying, because I can't believe that they're not all using AI in some way. And it's estimated that 25 to 35% of small to medium businesses are beginning to explore AI right now. So there's still a huge gap there between the large corporations and the small businesses. So the jobs affected by AI right now, this is not an all-inclusive list. It's not even close. And it's a real busy one. I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you can see, it's everything from customer service, marketing, human resources. But look at the top 2, programmers and engineers. I live in Huntsville, Alabama. You can't throw a rock without hitting 2 engineers and a programmer. It's a big thing to us here. It's a big thing to any of us in the field of technology. But I think programming is what we're seeing affected the most right now. And so how is it affecting programming? Well, it's affecting in a couple of different ways. One is it's augmenting the task of the programmer. If you've embraced AI, and not all programmers have, you generally start your programming with a prompt now instead of going straight into the IDE. So we're already seeing it replace the junior programmers because it can do a lot of the work itself. And what we're seeing is less need for those and a greater need for the people that know how to actually architect these applications. So AI is not about replacing programming jobs, but augmenting. I'll say that's for right now. Right now, it's only augmenting programming. It can't do everything, although there was an announcement just last night from a company called Magic that they claim that they have an AI that can actually write end-to-end code using agents. and the founder of GitHub invested $100 million yesterday in them, so they must be onto something. But right now, at least today, AI can't completely replace programmers. As I said, it's in the process of getting rid of the repetitive jobs. So you're not really going to need to know how to access an API or any of this stuff. You're not really going to need to know any specific programming language because the AI can translate between languages. So, and as far as the API interfaces go, it probably already knows how to do that. If it doesn't, you can just feed it the documentation and it will learn. So this is an estimate here. Generative AI tools like GitHub Copilot can automate 60 to 70% of the coding work. So in my experience, I've seen numbers closer to 90% and above. But I can understand if it's a really complex program that number would drop down. So I think 60 to 75% may be accurate overall. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we are about to see an explosion of apps and software. Because if you're making programmers 4 times more productive by using AI, in theory, you should get 4 times more software development out of them. And when you have the ability for a manager or a human resource manager or any knowledge worker out there to simply through natural language prompt an AI to write a program for them just to complete a specific task that they need without having to involve IT or programmers, you're going to see a lot of one-off apps built like that. So between the personalized apps that people will be able to build themselves and the increased productivity of programmers using AI, we're about to see a huge explosion in software. So I did a few slides on this about how we can use AI in our personal life and our business life. I'm not going to go in depth on most of these because I want to do demos, which I know that's dangerous anytime you do a live demo. And with AI, it's really fun because it never answers the same way twice. So we'll see how that goes at the end. But I will cover these pretty quickly. So personalized learning and tutors for language learning and skill development. So this is one of the aspects that people are saying AI is going to have a huge impact is personalized training because you can interact and have the conversations back and forth with the AI. I've heard that the best way to learn a foreign language is to have a conversation with someone that speaks that language. Well, as you know, at least through the mobile version of ChatGPT, you can speak to it and it will speak back. And so I haven't tried this myself, but I've heard that it's one of the best ways to learn a foreign language because you can have a conversation with it and it'll tell if you're pronouncing it correctly or not. And we're going to see a lot more tutoring apps like that, I believe. In art and design, you can generate unique artwork and design elements for personal projects. I'm actually doing this right now. I'm wanting to decorate with the theme of Huntsville, so I'm using AI to generate pictures of Huntsville in the past and the present and project what it will look like in the future. Plan to do those as oil paintings, send them off to be printed on canvas and framed, and I'll have my own art and the colors that I like, the style I like, and I'm not an artist. I'm a nerd. I have no artistic ability whatsoever. I have no athletic ability. But with AI, it bridges that gap. It gives me the skills I need to actually create what I consider art. And on the business side, it's really some of the same things. It's great at documentation, generating reports, summaries, meeting notes. I have a client that we have a standing weekly meeting, and he uses an AI that sits in our video meeting and takes notes. At the end, it gives us a full transcript, a summary, and action items. And it can even keep track of who said what during the meeting. And so it's been wonderful. We don't have to take notes anymore. And then I don't know how many people are even quite aware of this. I know after 3 days of this conference, you know that AI generates images. I don't know how many people have talked about that AI, at least ChatGPT, can also understand images. So you can upload an image and it can understand what you've sent it. And we'll look at some demos of that later. Okay. And then on the business side, obviously the same thing, only for business effects. It's great at writing ad copy, creating images for your ads, 3D modeling. If you saw the Soro demo that came out just before this conference started, I think you're going to see a lot more 3D modeling and use of AI in video games, besides, of course, its primary use, which is just making videos. And most of the demos I'm going to do today are GPTs. So how many of you here are familiar with GPTs? They were announced back in November. Okay, so most everybody? So they were announced in November, came out in January, I believe. How many people use GPTs on a regular basis? Custom GPTs? Okay, that's a lot. Okay, great. So this is the GPT store that just went live. Some of its key features, and what this does, it gives you the ability to take ChatGPT and customize it to your own needs. So you can tailor them to specific interests without any coding requirement. Although if you do want to write code, you can do that. You can use them for individual use, company use, or for public sharing. You can put instructions in that customize it. It has advanced skills for web browsing, image generation, data analysis, and then actually it has a code interpreter. And again, it says no coding needed, but we have the ability to do that. And I'm going to actually show you how to create those. Has anybody here created their own GPT yet? Okay, well, we're all going to create one in just a second. All right, so I told someone earlier that I'm going to cover all the sectors that I can, everything from programming to landscaping. And so I do have these on here, and I will cover programming and landscaping. Hopefully I can cover all these others. All right, so that is it for my slides. I'm ready to go to the demos. Let's see. Give me just a moment here. There it goes. Okay. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is going to be interesting. Let's see, which one can I see this best from? I guess right here. Oh, this is going to be very interesting. So most everybody's used GPT so far. So you've seen this new icon or link that showed up recently, Explore GPTs. So this is the same storefront that I just showed you a minute ago. And we can just type some things in here like medical. And you see there's already thousands. I think there's tens of thousands of custom GPTs that have already been created. So we have, let's see what we have. For medic, we have innovative medical guides. Let's see, code medic, a couple of code medics. So spell that on out. Let's just get medical, which I misspelled it. But there's the medical AI, medical research. If you go back to the store, there you go. You can see that they have some featured, so Wolfram, of course, whimsical diagrams. Consensus lets you search 200 million academic research papers. 11 Labs has their speech app as a GPT. These are some that we created, and some of the more popular ones is image generator, logo creator, and they break these down by different categories. But we're going to go into create my own GPT. Okay, and so I have one ready to go. I'm going to do one for a human resources manager. Okay, so I've got this. Let me just paste it in to save time. So I have to give it a title. I have to give it a description. Let me find that. Okay, and then the instructions. So I'll point out that they do have this button here that will actually take natural language and create a prompt for you for this GPT. In my opinion, it doesn't work very well, and after 3 days of this AI symposium, you don't need that because you know enough about AI to write your own prompts. So I'm gonna put my own in here, which is really pretty simple. These can be complex. We're gonna put this one in, and it's just gonna tell it, think of this as a system prompt, and this is just gonna tell it to act as an HR assistant. And then they have these conversation starters, which you're familiar with from regular ChatGPT, and I'm just going to put one in that is saying, how can I facilitate remote, let's see, what does it say? How can I improve employee engagement in remote teams? Okay? And then one last thing, we need an icon. And so we can upload a photo, or we can actually use DALL-E, and based on our title and description, it's going to generate an appropriate logo, hopefully appropriate. All right, and while it's doing that, we can go ahead and start interacting with this. So, I did leave off one other thing. We're not finished with it. So let's scroll down a bit. So, first of all, we have the knowledge base. So I know several other speakers have talked about RAG, including in the last presentation, which is rapid augmented generation. It's the idea that if you want to talk with your own data, and if you probably everybody has seen this with Talk with My PDF, you can upload your PDF, the PDF is converted into vectors which the AI can understand, and then it'll use the contents of that PDF to answer your questions. So this has RAG built in. And so, boy, here we go. It's difficult for me to see this. So this is an HR app, and I found a place where I could download hundreds of fake resumes. So these are all different resumes, and I'm just going to pick a few of them and upload these resumes into this app. So right now, it's uploading them and actually converting them to vectors. So when those turn blue, that means they've already been added. Then we have the ability, by default, web browsing's turned on, which is very useful because, as you know, all these LLMs have a cutoff date. As a matter of fact, ChatGPT's cutoff date was, I believe, April of 2023 until yesterday. And now it's December of 2023, which is great because I remember when the cutoff date would be over a year in the past. So we really needed the web browsing to get current information. But now it's current through December, and with web browsing, it can go out and get even more current information. Then also, by default, is DALL-E for image generation. And then we're going to turn on Code Interpreter. So how many people are familiar with Code Interpreter? Okay. It's a terrible name. They renamed it to Data Analysis for a while, and now I notice it's back to Code Interpreter. So they renamed it to Data Analysis because that's what people were mainly using it for. But what it does is, if you ask the LLM to do something it can't do, so if you ask it to, say, create a Excel spreadsheet, well, it can generate the content for the spreadsheet, but it can't actually create an Excel spreadsheet. So with Code Interpreter, it'll actually open a Python window, and it will write the code to generate the Excel spreadsheet, and then it'll actually execute the code and deliver the sheet to you. And obviously, the ability of this, that's a pretty simple example. People are using it for data analysis by uploading large amounts of data and have it doing charts on them, data analysis, all sorts of things. So that's why they renamed it. But really, what it is doing is interpreting code. If you ask it to do something that it can't do, it'll just go out and write the code to do it and run it for you. So we are going to enable that, and we've got our logo now. So now, we're going to save this, and here are our options. We can do it for only me, anyone at my company, anyone with a link, or everyone. So if you go with everyone, it goes into the GPT store that we were just looking at, and anybody can use it. Since this is just a demo, I'm just going to do it for anyone with a link. See, is it finished yet? Okay, great. So now, and of course we'll do this. Let's start with our conversation starter. How can I improve employee engagement in remote teams? So it's going to give me some tips on that. Frequent communication, technology and tools. That's great. I'm not going to let that finish though. Some of these can get wordy. Instead, I'm going to ask it, do any applicants have software development experience with Python as well as database and web design? So remember, I uploaded all those resumes when I created this. So I don't have to tell it to go look at those resumes. It knows that they're there. It understands natural language, and it can infer that if I'm talking about applicants, I'm talking about those resumes. Notice when I upload them, I didn't even tell them it was resumes. It can read and understand that those files were actually people's resumes. So we're going to send that prompt to it. So what it's doing now is searching knowledge. So the first thing it did was go and read all of the resumes I uploaded, and then it searched for those skills. And of course, this is all using natural language. So when I said database and web design, if they mentioned a specific database, it's smart enough to know. If it said SQL Server, Oracle, it knows that that's a database. So it came back, yes. Looks like we only have one candidate that meets all those requirements. So congratulations, guess that's who we hire. Now also remember, let's see. My second prompt's really not gonna do much good, but we'll try it anyway, because most of the time I get a few people back. I've practiced a few times. But I'm going to ask it which one would be the best to lead some Python programmers. So now it's going back, since I've given it another requirement, so it's going to look for anything that might imply that they have leadership skills. And sure enough, it's come back, and this candidate has direct, relevant experience with Python and has held roles that suggest his experience in leading projects or initiatives. All right, and now, just to show off what Code Interpreter looks like, and my mouse just locked up on me. Wow, it really did. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to ask it to, can you plot the skills of the candidates on an appropriate chart for me? I don't actually know what would be an appropriate chart, so I do this a lot. I let the AI decide. Most of the time it knows better than I do. So we'll see what kind of chart it picks. So this is going to look at all the resumes, and as you can see already, it's writing Python code. It's using, looks like matplot library and pyplot. So it's gone through all the resumes that I uploaded, and it's putting them into, looks like a JSON file. And this will take a little bit, so I will, yeah, here we go. So right now it's writing the code. In just a second, it's going to be finished, and it's actually going to execute this code. Then we've all seen it write code before. It's pretty cool to see it execute. And there you go. And so it actually created this chart in Python and then delivered it here. It looks like the ones that I chose, though, have a lot of overlap on skills. It looks like only Toby has database, it looks like API development experience. So that's just one way. And then notice that it actually links back to those files. Well, actually, that's the analysis, sorry. But it will link back to the files so you can go verify that what it told you was correct. And so, of course, since we're here, I had to do a GPT for the Space and Rocket Center. And I was doing this last night, and if you guys read any of the news this morning, ChatGPT was having some problems last night, so let's see if this even works. If not, I have a backup. So this would fall under customer service, and it's not the normal way we would do an app for customer service, but I'm trying to do everything in the GPT interface just to keep it simple today. So let's see if this one's going to work today. I can tell you it was not working last night. So what's happening today at the Rocket Center? And to create this, what I did was very similar to the other one, except that I downloaded every page from the Space and Rocket Center's website, and that's what I put into the knowledge base. So this isn't having to go to the internet or anything, and say, yeah, it is having a problem. I'm not sure what's causing that, so I'm going to go to my backup, which is right over here. And this is how we would normally do customer service. This is the Space and Rocket Center's website. I promise I didn't hack it, but I did do a little trick to give it this little pop-up on the bottom, if I can get my mouse over there. There we go. So this is the US Rocket Center bot. Ask me a question about the Space and Rocket Center, and I'll be happy to answer. So let's ask it. See, what are your operating hours? And again, there should be no hallucination in this because it is pulling the information from the knowledge base. Let's say, what events are happening today? And I'll be curious as to what this one says because I'm not sure it actually knows what today's date is. Actually, it is. It's actually pulling up stuff from our agenda today for this conference. Entertainment and storytelling, actually, I think that was yesterday. But yeah, it's pulling up yesterday, so it really doesn't know what the date is, but I guess it got it pretty close. And let's see, what else can we ask? Here's a great one. Let's see if it can do this. The other one could. Okay. I may have to turn this podium so I can see this better.
Yes.
It does? Okay, great.
Just turn around.
So I'm gonna have it, let's do it. Okay, this is gonna be a lot better. Should have done this a long time ago. Okay, plan an itinerary for me to visit in one day. So let's see how well it does with this. So it couldn't find a relevant answer to that one. Yeah, the one I did use in the GPTs actually was able to answer that question. This one didn't put nearly as much work into it because it was my backup plan. But you get an idea of what we do for customer service. At any point, we can set this up to hand off to a human if they need to speak to a human. But in general, you could do everything besides planning itineraries, getting information on events to, this could be tied into their ticketing system to go ahead and buy your tickets in advance. So let's go on to another example. I still haven't done the two main ones, which is programming and, okay. Programming and, of course, landscaping. Okay, up here. So this is a GPT that I wrote for programming Chrome extensions. So if you're not familiar, Chrome extensions are all these things sitting up here. I use a bunch of them for different things. A lot of times I want a Chrome extension to do a specific task for me. And so this was pretty handy for me. So I'm going to do a simple one for a demo. Obviously, Chrome extensions can get complex, but all I'm going to do is the simplest thing I could think of, which is write a Chrome extension that when I click on it, it will turn the background color of the page to red. Yeah, I'm not very creative. And I've set this GPT up, so it's telling you all the files that you're going to need for a Chrome extension. Basically, you need a manifest file, you need JavaScript, you need a JSON, and an HTML pop-up. So this is going to go through, and it's going to write all of those different files that it needs. When it gets to the end, I've told it ahead of time in the instructions that I gave it to use Code Interpreter to take all those files and zip them up into a package that I can download. And that way, all I have to do is download the package, go into Chrome, and say install this Chrome extension. So it takes a while, especially when it gets to the zipping part. So I've actually already run this last night, and this is the extension here. It even created this logo for me, or icon for me in DALL-E. So it did the entire thing from a single prompt. We'll click on it, and it works. Completely useless, but it works. Okay, let's reload to get that ugly red out of there. Okay, much better. All right, so that's an example of programming. So that wrote an entire program, a Chrome extension, with a single line. So again, when I see these quotes of 50 to 60%, it can be higher if you know the right way to prompt it. And then we'll have to, of course, look at the landscaper one. All right, this is another one I wrote. Is it trying to load? Let me try a new window. Okay, internet's a little slow today. Well, while we're waiting for this load, anybody have any questions so far?
Is that secure? So if company has a lot of data.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you asked that, because especially if our internet stays out, it'll really help me out here that you asked that question. So with RAG, if you heard her question, it's like, how safe is that? So with this, I'm uploading these files to ChatGPT. So I'm using their RAG database, their vector store. So if you have a business account or a pro account like I've got, then your data is kept, it's not used for training. You keep your data, but it's still up in the cloud, and it's in ChatGPT's control. And so is it safe? It's relatively safe. There are better solutions, I would say, if you have data that is important to you. You can run your own vector RAG database locally. There are plenty of open source solutions for that you can put on a server, and they're not really that resource intensive at all. So I would suggest if you have important data that you put it on local resources. There are also, of course, plenty of third-party sites like Pinecone that do vector stores. And ultimately, if you have important information you need to protect, then you might want to run the entire LLM in-house. So instead of using ChatGPT or Google's Gemini or Anthropic or Perplexity, there are a lot of open source models that are getting better and better every day and getting closer and closer to what ChatGPT can do that you can run locally on your premises that don't even need an internet connection to answer it. And if I have time at the end, I promised someone else earlier this week, I would show them how to run a local LLM on this laptop, which is an LG Gram that weighs less than 2 pounds. It's not exactly a workhorse, but it can run a few of the open source models. So if we have time at the end, I'll load one of those up and show you how you could run your entire thing in-house in your own business, and that's secure. So here's the Green Thumb Gardening Guide. So these are things that I put on all my GPTs, pretty much tells what it does. This is just kind of an advertisement for me to do a GPT for you. Daily briefing will go out to the internet and pull all the latest stories related to this GPT. So it's going to pull any news on landscaping and give you a daily briefing of that with links back to any articles that it finds. So, but we're going to skip all that. And I actually have a picture here. We're going to look at the image recognition capabilities. So I'll put my prompt in first. My prompt is just simply, can you tell me what kind of plant this is and what might be wrong with it? So if I look in here, I'm going to have to turn around even more. Okay, I'm in the resumes. So in here, I should have sick plant. Oh, I cannot read that. Right here? Right, there, okay. Thank you, I literally can't read that from here. Okay, yes, that does look like a sick plant. All right, so let's go ahead and send that on. Whoops, wrong button. You'll be able to see the image a little bit better. Okay, there you go. So I pulled this off the internet. I have no idea what kind of plant this is, but it looked sick to me. So it's right now, and clearly there's no text on this image. This is just someone holding some leaves out. Okay, it appears to be a rose. I didn't know that. Identifiable by the distinctive serrated leaf margins. And the overall leaf shape. The symptoms shown, yellowing leaves with black spots, suggest a common fungal disease known as black spot. So it's going to go ahead and explain all this to me, and then I think I ask it to also tell me what I can do to fix it, or I just ask what might be wrong with it. Hopefully it'll go and tell me any treatment for it. It's doing that now, remove and destroy any infected leaves, all that. But I think what's impressive is just from that image, figured out it was a rose bush, figured out what disease it had, and then told me what I can do to help it. And then I have another image. I think I'm going to skip this other image because it's really hard for me to pick those out. But I'll just tell you the demo was uploading a picture of a newly constructed house and saying, hey, can you suggest some landscaping for this? And it goes through and suggests, what you can do based on the image that you uploaded to it. So for the next one, I don't really need a GPT for this one, but I want to continue on the theme of image recognition. So I will have to upload one more file. All right. I'll let you guys help me again. We want to find one, that's called Cell. This one? Yeah. Thank you. You didn't know it was going to be audience participation, did you? Okay, so for the prompt for this one, and this just, I'm sure we've all seen this image before, back from our high school days. So for the prompt for this one, I am a 9th grade biology student. Can you help me understand this? And so this is a diagram of a cell. So this does have text, and of course, a pretty complex illustration. And immediately, absolutely, you're looking at a diagram of an animal cell. So it even understood it was an animal, not a plant. And it's going through and explaining what every single thing outlined in that diagram, it's giving me a description of it. So that's great. Let's say, go in with the theme that I am a 9th grade biology student. Can you give me a pop quiz on this? Just 3 true or false questions. I'm going to stop it doing that, so we'll answer this question. Absolutely. Here's a quick true or false. The mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell because it is where cell DNA is stored. Not sure that's true. I'm not a biologist, though, so I'm not even going to read the others. I'm going to say false, true. Anybody want to guess for the third one? True, false? I'll go true. Oh, it'd help if I typed it in the right box. So I'm going to go true, false, true. Let's see how well I did. Okay, true. Okay, so I got the first one correct. Oh, wait. Yeah, true, false was correct. Okay, the first one I got wrong, the second one was correct, and it looks like the last one I got wrong. It's a good thing that I'm doing AI and not biology. All right, and I'll ask it one more thing. So this was as a 9th grader. And so explain it as if I was a PhD biology student, and I think we've all seen things like this where you'll go back and answer in a much more complicated manner, assuming that I am a PhD student. And I'm going to skip this other one. We're going to go to this one. Since we are talking about job sectors, I don't know, I was going somewhere with this. If you're a teacher, I'm going to change the prompt. But now I'm a 9th grade biology teacher, and can you create a lesson plan for this? And it's a little slow, but it's going through and explaining what the lesson plan is going to be about. 9th grade level, understanding the animal cell, duration 45 to 50 minutes. It's going to tell the objective, the materials I'll need to execute this lesson plan, the entire thing for me. So to me, if I were a teacher or if I were homeschooling, I would think these kind of tools would be pretty useful. And let's see, we'll do another one here. This is one I did not write. This is someone else did this, and it's just a logo creator. All right. I'm just going to tell it to create a new logo for my business because I don't really like the one I have right now. So it can't be much worse. Okay, and it's going to ask me a few things about it. I want it to be serious. And on a scale of 1 to 10 of complexity, I want it pretty simple. Let's go 3. And then the last thing, it asked me one more thing. I'm going to go with blue and white for the colors, or blue and gray. And then it's asking me if I want a single design or 9 to choose from. And I always like choices. And now it's going to use DALL-E to go out and generate 9 versions of a logo. We'll see how well it does on that. I'm using a GPT for this because typically it's not that great at doing logos without some good prompting. Okay, so there you go. So this is actually pretty similar to the logo I actually do have. So not bad. And then another thing that we talked about was its ability to generate ad copy. I think this was one of the first things that I used AI for, was developing ad copy for e-commerce businesses and also doing SEO, search engine optimization. It's really good at that. So for this one, this is another one that I wrote, and I wrote it just for this presentation. I'm going to say, there we go. Okay, so can you create a social media ad for my business? Gave it a link to my business and include a QR code that links to the website. So you notice the first thing it did was go straight to Code Interpreter because it doesn't know how to create QR codes, but you can write an app in Python that can create QR codes, and that's exactly what it did. And now it's creating the social media app for me. Unlock the future of efficiency and innovation with AI business solutions. Our cutting-edge AI technologies, tailor-made to streamline operations. Sounds pretty good to me. Custom AI solutions, data-driven insights, scalable innovations. Definitely better than I could do. And it looks like our QR code did not show up right. Looks like it just is broke there. Let's try. Just tell it, show the QR code. Let's see if that'll make it work. No, it's having a problem showing QR codes today. Again, with AI, you just really don't know what it's going to do each time. It created the QR code, but it's just not showing up for some reason. But anyway, that should have linked back to my business website, AI Business Solutions. And I was going to end on that, so it was like, a cheap way of doing advertising. And let's see, I think that's everything I have for the demos. We can take some questions, and if we have time, if you want me to load up a local LLM, and other people have been talking about the Sora text-to-video demos that came out. I actually have those on the laptop. If you guys want to watch that, it's pretty amazing.
That's a question. I mean, I absolutely love this technology, so I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer in what I'm going to say, but as it relates to education in schools, which is really my main focus at this part of the equation, all this looks great, but we're encouraging teachers to teach potentially inaccurate data. So where is that? Where are the guardrails on that? I'm highly concerned.
We are the guardrails.
Yeah, but so you do it, and then it comes up, and then they teach it, and then. Yeah.
You're skipping a step. That's the problem. That's where we fit in. And
right.
That goes back to one of the quotes that I put up there. So, and if you notice, if you use any of these AIs, they say everything should be reviewed by a human.
So when you review it, we're getting our information from the internet. So how are we fact-checking properly? I guess that's my real...
We still need teachers to be teachers. They still need to know this. So it will help them, like creating the lesson plan. That could be kind of difficult. You may know everything about biology, but creating lessons plans, that's a completely different skill. And so you still need the teachers that actually know what they're teaching. I see it, certainly right now, it's really an augmentation. It's augmenting what you know and helping you out with the things that you don't, like creating lessons plans, generating images of cells, things like that, just to augment.
You're getting it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I think I see what you're saying, but let's hope that this is only going to be used in this situation by a teacher that actually knows biology. Right. Yeah. So you still require that human element. Same with the programming that I was showing. You still are going to need, and we really are going to have to change our curriculum in schools, I think, drastically.
Don't know the difference, and that's what they're trying. That's what we have to, that's the challenge.
Exactly.
Come up with the answer for it.
And these next few years are going to be very challenging as this gets into everything.
Because kids are using ChatGPT,
Mm-hmm.
and,
But it can be used for good. So,
it's all good.
Yeah, my son uses it to study. Yeah, exactly.
It's all great.
It's great, but it does always have to be verified. And we do get rid of a lot of that when we use RAG and things like that. But, someone at one conference I was at one time said ChatGPT, basically, it's just a giant automated mansplainer. Because it will tell you anything. Its job is to answer the question, not necessarily correctly, just give you an answer. It wants to please you, and so it'll give you an answer regardless. So I think that, they are getting better at reducing the hallucinations, though, and a lot of people that complain about the hallucinations are not doing proper prompt engineering beforehand. That makes a really big difference. And I didn't do a real good job on prompt engineering for any of this, but I know someone did a session earlier on prompt engineering, so I figured it's been covered already.
So could you, oops, sorry, I got a mic here.
Oh.
Could you have given all the information for the cell diagram that you did in a text form and have it create the graphic for it?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't even need to give it that much information. I'm sure it knows what a cell is made of and everything. I could probably just say, oh, matter of fact, I left that out of the demo. I actually had a prompt, now can you show me a plant cell? And it does actually go out and generate the plant version of the cell. So yeah, it will do that. And it's as simple as just asking for it.
So This is in response to the woman in front who asked the question about children using AI. You know, I find, when you said, well, hopefully the teacher will use it and they know something about biology. In fact, I find that people use AI when they know nothing about the topic. And so have you ever thought of establishing guidelines for cross-referencing or checking what AI produces as sort of just a rule of thumb, a quality check, an established procedure? I imagine things can get really wrong quickly.
Yes. And if I had asked it a lot of questions, like, for instance, about the Space and Rocket Center, without having it preloaded with its website and everything, it probably would not give very good answers. And it will just make stuff up if it doesn't know. And yeah, you're absolutely right. As far as the fact checking, one thing I like about RAG is that when it uses RAG, you have to add a little extra code to it, but you can actually have it point to that section in the documents that you've uploaded to where it got its information. We did a project for a motorhome company. They sell these super expensive $500,000 motorhomes, and they have owner's manuals. And we were, testing it out to see what it could answer. And so one of the questions we asked was, what kind of batteries does my smoke detector in my motorhome need? And I looked through the document and I couldn't find the answer to that. So I went ahead and asked the AI anyway, and it says it needs a 9-volt battery. It's like, well, how did it get that answer? Well, the most obscure, terrible place to put it, at the very top of the document, it mentions that what smoke detector it has and that it needs a 9-volt battery. When you go later down in the document, when it's talking about the smoke detector, it doesn't mention batteries at all. But it mentioned it up there, so I was able to verify that that is correct. It's a 9-volt battery because it showed me where in that document it said that it needed a 9-volt battery. They really need something like that on these LLMs. And I know there's some research into that, but I'm afraid we're a ways off of it being able to point back. This is how I came up with this answer. Because of the way the transformers work, it's going to be pretty difficult.
And is there any movement toward these, ChatGPT and all these companies to actually catalog where they get their data so that we can actually...
No.
Yeah.
They don't want to tell anybody where they got
Right.
their data. That's probably the best kept secret for any of them. There's obviously lawsuits going on right now about where they got some of that data. So for lots of reasons, they don't want to tell you where they got that data.
Sorry. My question was, when you're teaching people about how to use AI, do you also cover confirmation bias, and how do you deal with that? Because once you get an answer, it's really a lot easier to prove to yourself it's right than to find out it's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really ties into the last two questions, really. You do have to verify everything right now. And as far as confirmation bias, OpenAI and Google and all of these, they do a lot to try to make their models less biased. When you get into the open source models, they don't have the resources to do that sort of thing. So that's kind of up to whoever's using that model. But I think several other people have talked throughout this conference about how bias is a real thing in AI because it's just trained off our knowledge, and our knowledge is biased anyway.
Related to your comment about where the data comes from, do you have concerns about the legal and ethical implications of it training itself on copyrighted or otherwise protected intellectual property as part of its knowledge base?
Yeah, so this is where I'm supposed to say I'm not an attorney. I think that's the standard answer when you get one of those questions at one of these things. It's going to be litigated. But we went through all this before, back with the the Digital Millennium Act of 2000 and things like that. Before that, we had Napster and all these other things. YouTube was considered to violate copyright law back in those days before Google bought it. We had to go through all those issues with the internet. We're going to have to work through all of this with AI now. And I'm a big supporter of regulation. We've got to have regulation, but it's got to be well thought out. Because we're not just talking about, strategic, there's an arms race in AI, and it's not just between OpenAI and Google and Anthropic and Perplexity. it's also an arms race between nations. And so we don't want regulation that's so bad that it makes us fall behind China or someone like that. But I do firmly believe we do need smart regulation. And I know that's probably an oxymoron to say smart regulation, but let's hope they do a good job with it.
Or education.
Education,
You know,
yeah.
like maybe not regulate as much as educate.
Maybe educate before you regulate.
Exactly. So that it doesn't, you know, so kids are in understanding, or people are in understanding of like how great this is, used in the right way. You know,
That is
life is really great, but if you're not careful with it, you'll cut yourself. You know, it's just
Yes, exactly.
common sense, right?
Yes, and that is a problem with pretty much all regulation. It seems to be done before they're actually educated on what the tools can do.
Well, it's fear-based.
It is, yeah. But there's a reason to fear some of this, like Elon Musk said.
Yes, 100%, but you have to stay open-minded.
Exactly. You're not going to stop it. We've never been successful at stopping any technology. It's going to happen, so we need to steer this.
And if it's not us here, it's going to be people that don't think maybe the same way that we think.
Exactly. I'd rather be driving this train than riding it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, we're at this point where it's kind of like, if we want to continue to lead in a good way, then we have to do that.
I agree, and that was actually the whole point of OpenAI. If you remember how it started with Elon Musk, and it had support, not financially, but from Bill Gates, I believe, and several others. And the idea was that someone is going to develop an AI, and it could be an evil AI. So let's beat them to it and build a safe AI ahead of time. And Anthropic is trying to do the same thing. And so that's the goals of these companies, but they're also having to, especially now that OpenAI is not fully nonprofit, half of it is for profit, and you've got a big investor like Microsoft that's going to be pushing them forward, and that tends to create a situation where you're reducing your testing and quality control in order to meet these stockholder goals. And
Right.
that's going to be,
Both support each other.
exactly. Yeah, so that's also going to be a problem.
So you mentioned how you see AI changing in like the next 10 years. How do you see companies like yours changing with it?
Well, we change constantly. We've already changed. So the first AI tool I wrote was about this time last year for e-commerce sellers. It did things like rewrite your listings if you have an Amazon store or something like that. It did a lot of different tools, created ads for Google, all this sort of stuff. I wrote it using the GPT-3 API. Well, I finished it, I think, at the end of February. On March 1st, they released GPT 3.5. So all the work I had done before, completely gone. So I had to rewrite everything for 3.5. April, just a month later, GPT-4 came out. So it's a constant struggle to stay on top of things and relevant to everything. So we have to change, especially my company has to change just almost on a weekly, monthly basis. We're jumping from one technology to another. But all businesses are going to have to do this because this is changing so rapidly. Look what all happened in 2023, and just think how that's going to happen in 2024. And this is growing at a logarithmic, logarithmic scale. So it's only going to get faster, not slower. It's not a steady increase like we're used to with technology. This is compounding technology that's just building upon itself.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm with the Huntsville Business Journal. So thinking about AI and thinking, like, obviously some of the challenges and benefits of AI are going to be kind of universal or national. But when you think about AI and think about it more locally, what do you think about, like, having your background in Huntsville, like you do, what do you think are some of the kind of like benefits and challenges that the local business community will have? Or some of the opportunities? Like how do you think about it in a local sense?
Well, here in Huntsville, the mayor, Tommy Battle, he's created the AI task force. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but I and at least one other speaker here is on that task force, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. And I think a lot of cities, the state of Alabama just announced something similar. I think a lot of cities are going to be doing similar things. With Huntsville, though, besides helping businesses integrate AI into what they're doing, Huntsville also wants to be a hub for AI. So the mayor's made it his mission and initiative to make Huntsville at least a regional hub for AI research and development. And so I think that it's going to play a big role, obviously, with our background, our resources in the realm of engineering and programming, all the resources we have here in Huntsville. We're pretty well positioned for that. But we also have a long way to go. The task force, we've had one meeting so far. So everybody is pretty new to this. About a year ago, I was preaching all these very same things to people, and they thought I was crazy. I went back to my university and I said, look, you're going to have to change curriculum. You're going to have to do all this stuff. Thought I was crazy. Now they've brought someone in to do just exactly that. So people they're waking up in 2024. 2023 was really when a lot of us saw the potential. I think 2024, everybody else is going to be jumping on board. I think about the adoption rate of the web and the internet, and we measured that in years. I mean, we'd look at the charts, it was like, wow, in 3 years it's going to be this many people, in 4 years it's going to be this many. With AI, it's like in 3 days it's going to be this, in 5 days it's going to be like this. A year from now, we can't even predict. Yep. I'm sorry.
Okay. I thought someone else. Okay. No, this isn't really a question. It's just I was expressing interest in, I think you were saying showing like how to house your own LLM, I think?
Yeah.
Yes, I was just showing.
You may give that a try?
Yes.
Okay.
Please. Thank you.
All right. So let's see. I'm going to turn this around so I can see much better for this one. So I'm going to use something called LM Studio. This is completely free software. And there's other ones besides this. But I like it because it's easy. So I'm going to move this up to here. So this is LM Studio. And what's so great about it is that you have the ability to go up here and search for open source models from Hugging Face. I know everybody knows about Hugging Face from some of the other presentations. They're sort of kind of like a clearinghouse for open source LLMs, or really for all LLMs. And so we can search in here. I was trying to get this just came out last night. So just yesterday, Google, as you know, they've come up with their Gemini 1.5 LLM, which the rumors are it's better than ChatGPT 4, or at least as good. So out of the blue, as a surprise yesterday, that's Gemini. Google released what is it called, Gemma? Yeah, Gemma, that's open source. And it's a small model that they actually have one that's only 2 billion parameters. You should be able to run it on a laptop without even a graphics card. But I couldn't get it to run today. It just came out yesterday. I think it needs some tweaking to get it to run on a PC. So I couldn't get it to run, but I do have some others preloaded. And LM Studio is pretty good because you not only can find these models, and if I want to download these, I can just click here and download it. We'll try it. While that's downloading, we'll go though over to the chat. So it's nice that this has several features built in. One is it has a server, so you can turn the server portion on, and then you can talk to it, to its API, just like you would to OpenAI's API. So if you've written something that works in ChatGPT 4, then you can simply just change the URL or the API endpoint from ChatGPT to your local server. All your code still works. And instead of paying OpenAI for your token access and sending all your data out over the internet to them to do who knows what with, you're keeping it all in-house. So it has that built in, but then it also has this chat feature built in. So I'm going to load. This one's going to be really tough for this machine, but it will be slow. I'm just going to warn you. But this one is considered to be, let's go use model values. Let's hope this works. Okay, so it's loading the model up now into memory. And this is a mixture of agents, 7B. So this is built similar to how ChatGPT was built. So ChatGPT is not actually a single AI. It's a mixture of 8 different AIs. And for years, people, or actually not years, I guess, we haven't been around that long, but for months, people have been talking about how important these system prompts are and things like that. And they are important because that initial prompt you give it is going to pick 3 agents for it to answer the rest of that conversation on. And Mixtral has a version of this using 7 billion parameter models that does the exact same thing. And now after telling you all that, I'm going to actually prompt it without setting a system prompt. So I'm not practicing what I preach, but what I'm doing is pretty simple. Oh, it's still not loaded yet. Let's let it fit. Like I said, it's pretty big. I probably should have closed down everything on this laptop to try to run this, but hopefully it will get loaded. It's getting really, really close when that blue bar gets to the end. While we're waiting, any other questions? Okay.
Hi. My question is, you mentioned earlier about rethinking curriculums. Could you deep dive a little bit on that? Of course, we want our students and educators to maximize this, but we still want to teach our students the basics and the important skills. But when you mentioned that, could you just briefly share what your perspective and your suggestions are, please?
Yeah, and I'm going to focus on college curriculum and programming specifically, because I know a bit more about that. And my issue, what I think is going to happen there is the jobs for what we affectionately call code monkeys, the people right out of college that they know how to write code, but they don't know anything about designing software, and they don't have the experience to know how to design software, and they may not have the business background to understand what the software needs to do and from a business perspective. And so those jobs, you're not going to be able to get a job like that right out of college with that kind of, with being able to do nothing but program, because that's going to be done by AIs. And probably if you're a freshman in college right now, by the time you graduate, it's definitely going to be, those jobs are going to be gobbled up by the AIs doing the work for you. So I think the curriculum for programming needs to change to where we're not focused on teaching them, oh, you need to learn Java, you need to learn C++, you need all these different languages. You just need to learn how software and programs work. And I think there should be a stronger emphasis on business rules and understanding the reason people need software to do certain things. But I think they need to get off of the technical aspect of teaching them a specific language or anything like that, instead focus on design of good software, quality control, cybersecurity. I will say that ChatGPT is pretty good at finding vulnerabilities, but it won't do it unless you ask it to. That Chrome extension, I doubt if it did anything for security whatsoever, but if I'd gone back and said, hey, will you check this for vulnerabilities and fix them, it would have done it. The very first time that I played with the code generation, my son called me up and he said, hey, have you looked at code generation in ChatGPT? And I said, no, I've been busy working on all these other things that it does. And he says, you need to look at it. And so he came over, and I had him write a program a few years ago for an e-commerce company I have. It was just a temporary program to run for about a month, but it had a memory leak. So a memory leak, if you don't know, is like it was opening something up and not closing it. And so if it ran continuously, it kept holding more and more memory. Every single time it ran, it allocated more memory. Didn't ever release it, so if you ran enough times, you'd run out of memory and it'd crash. But it was a temporary program. I glanced at it. I could not find the memory leak. I said, this will be a good experience for you to go find that memory leak. Well, he never found it before I quit using the app. So he said, Dad, I've still got that code. So he pasted it into ChatGPT and said, can you find the memory leak? Boom. Yes, here it is. I fixed it for you. Just that fast. Blew my mind. So then we said, can you tell me what this program does? It had no comments, no nothing. It was a program for me personally. It described it perfectly. I had it add comments. It did that. We were just having fun. We had it translate it from, I think it was in C# to Python. Then we tried, can you rewrite it in COBOL? It tried. It put out valid COBOL code. I don't think it would have run, but it was just amazing. And then we had it checked for vulnerabilities. And I've had to do cybersecurity in the past. And it found some things that I would not have thought of. And so it is pretty good at it, but again, you need that human element to tell it to go back and check for those things. Looks like this is loaded now. So I'm gonna ask it, I don't know why I do this, but from the very beginning, whenever I test them all, the first question I always ask, and I probably saw this in a video somewhere, what is the capital of France? It's just habit. Now this is going to be really slow. And matter of fact, well, you can't see my Wi-Fi, but I can go completely offline here and turn off Wi-Fi and find this to show you that this is generating strictly off of this very, very slow laptop. Oh, it started. The capital of France is located in the north central part of it's very slow. We can probably do more questions while it's answering this question.
Okay, so you mentioned that you think that the universities ought to stop teaching the programming languages, but that they still need to be on top of quality cybersecurity. So I have a kind of a two-part question. If people aren't taught the languages, how can they understand quality cybersecurity? And then the second part is, there's a level of complexity that's going to develop with just the integration of AI into everything, and when something ultimately goes wrong, somebody's got to figure that out. And if they don't understand the code and it's not compartmentalized, how can anybody ever do that?
Right, and let me clarify what I was saying. I don't think they need to be teaching you, 5 different languages. Besides the fact that when you graduate, there'll probably be a new language that's been created, that's none of those 5. Yeah, so you don't need, one language or honestly, pseudocode. There's a great article, I won't get into it today, but if you want to go home and find a neat article on Medium to read, it's called Pseudolang, S-U-D-O-L-A-N-G. And it goes back to last summer. And someone had a conversation with ChatGPT about developing a new programming language. And ChatGPT actually created this language from that conversation. And you can read his entire conversation back with ChatGPT. And what's so amazing is that it came up with a language that it would understand without any special prompting. So you can write code in this pseudo-lang, which looks very similar to programming languages that you're used to using, like JavaScript, and it understands it. It was not ever taught to know pseudo-lang. It just intrinsically knows how to interpret that language. And so you can write in that language and then transpose it to JavaScript, Python, whatever you want, like that. So we need to teach them, yes, this is how programs work. We don't need to get bogged down, though, on a specific language or anything like that. So that's all I was saying, is that we need to focus more on the design side and the architecture side of things, and less on, rote memory, learning all these languages, syntax, yes, and the stuff that most all of us hate anyway. Yeah. So let's see what it gave us for this. The capital of France is located in the north. Let's see, Paris is known for its iconic landmarks. So this is pretty similar to what you would get from ChatGPT. So let's take it a bit further. Remember when I first came in and I downloaded that Gemma model? So previously I had downloaded this Mistral model. So I want to say this was something like 30 gig. So I won't download it again today, but that's what it's based off of. Some of these models are even smaller, like 4 or 5 gig. I've got a medical AI running on my iPhone that's 2 gig, and it's good enough to pass the medical exam. and it's 2 gig. Yeah. That's something to keep in mind too. You know, ChatGPT is this massive program that's meant to do all these different things, and I've heard the stories of how much money it costs to run it per day, and how they, paid people minimum wage to train it and spent all these billions of dollars on it. But these open source models, they can do almost as good a job and tend to have basically anything you'd want to know, the majority of human knowledge condensed down to about a 5 gig file. It's a little scary and kind of humbling to put us in place. I think one thing about AI that I've learned is AI may not be that smart, but neither am I. So let's say I was putting this one in, plan an 8-day itinerary. If I'm spelling that right. I don't think I got close. That includes day trips. I'm actually thinking of going to Paris, so this will take a while. I can't even read if what I typed is good enough. Thank goodness these things are great at figuring out the typos. So, and this will take a bit more. Yeah. So again, this is an interactive presentation. Any more questions while we wait for this to answer?
Just a short question. When you were talking about your phone, the medical thing that you use on your phone, is this what you use, or what?
Yeah, you can actually load it in LM Studio as well. There's I forget what app. It's very similar to LM Studio for iOS that lets you. It works exactly like this. You download the models and it then runs them for you. And so you can play with a lot of different ones. And so it is finally answering this, by the way. And again, I'm pushing this machine to its limit. There's another model from the same company, Mistral is who did this. It's open source. They're a French company. Their first one they came out with is a single 7 billion parameter model. So remember, this is 8 7 billion parameter models. So it's 1/8 the size of this. And it gives great answers, and it's fast. It's lightning fast on this laptop.
What's it called?
Mistral, excuse me, Mistral, and then their mixture of agents is called Mixtral, Mixtral.
So one thing that I'm concerned about in terms of AI in specific fields such as engineering is I'm worried about this basic averaging of our designs and our design process. So we stop creating innovative solutions and start almost cut and pasting other solutions into a different solution.
Right, and I think that goes back to the quote earlier about it may be the last invention that we ever make. That's the problem. At what point does it get? I don't disagree with you. At what point are we just regurgitating everything we did up to this point in time? And I think that when you do get to the ASI, the super intelligent AI, then at that point, it's going to be creating things. And hopefully, when we get to that point, that it will be, at the point that it can be creative and do an even better job than we are at things. And you've already seen some AI and machine learning type applications where I'm sure you saw the articles where they've discovered like hundreds of different materials that they didn't know were possible. And I think they estimate it would have taken human researchers 100 years or something to do that. Something similar on some cancer research and folding proteins. I think it saved something like 600 years of research on that. So, we're already seeing some of those things where it's doing it better than we can. I always thought it was funny, somebody mentioned yesterday about when, was it Big Blue that beat Kasparov at chess? Yeah, and they said, wow, I remember the news at the time, it was like, wow, a computer is actually better at chess than a human. And I would kind of laugh because honestly, Chessmaster 2000 could beat me and most other humans. It's just that an AI was better than the best human chess player. for years, AIs had been better at beating most humans at chess.